I was 5 minutes from getting home when the panicked voice of my 17-year-old daughter screamed over the phone, "Daddy, a woman is blocking me at the gate. She says I don't belong here, and she's taking pictures of my body." My foot slammed the brakes so hard my cruiser skidded sideways on the country road. The words hit me like a punch in the chest. My daughter was crying, her voice shaky, and I could hear a stranger yelling in the background. I didn't even end the call, I just spun the wheel, hit the siren, and took off. In under 3 minutes, I arrived at the gated entrance of our neighborhood, and what I saw made my blood boil. There she was. A middle-aged white woman in yoga pants, oversized sunglasses, and a visor cap stood inches away from my daughter's car, one hand on her hip, the other holding a smartphone. Her tiny white dog yapped at the front tire. And my daughter? Her hands were shaking on the steering wheel, tears running down her cheeks. Karen. That's all I needed to see. I didn't walk up to her like a neighbor. I walked up like the chief of police, and in 20 seconds flat, I had Karen face down on the hood of her Lexus, cuffed. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA vice president." "You don't know who I am," she screamed. I leaned in and said, "You don't know who I am either. That's my daughter you harassed." Her face turned pale as a ghost. But just before I could read her rights, my radio buzzed. The dispatcher said something that froze my blood. "Chief, be advised, Karen's husband is en route. He just called saying you laid hands on his wife, and he's got a lawyer with him." Earlier that morning, it started out like a perfect Saturday. My daughter, Casey, had just gotten her driver's license a month earlier, and today was the first time I let her go pick up donuts alone. She was excited, wearing her favorite hoodie, sneakers, and blasting her music like most teens. Our neighborhood was quiet, upscale, and pretty tight-knit, so I had no reason to worry. Until I did. Unbeknownst to me, Karen, the self-declared vice president of our unofficial HOA, had been on a power trip lately. Last week, she fined a neighbor for painting their fence the wrong shade of beige. The week before, she threatened to report another family for planting tulips instead of roses. Everyone called her Gatekeeper Karen, because she lived right by the entrance and acted like she owned the whole neighborhood. Apparently, when she saw Casey driving in with the windows down and music playing, she snapped into full Karen mode. She stepped right into the driveway and blocked Casey's car from entering. "Where's your pass? Who are you here to see?" Casey, ever the sweet kid, politely explained, "I live here, ma'am. My name is Casey Bryant. We moved into the blue house last year." Karen scoffed. "No. I know everyone here. You don't belong. You're probably a visitor trying to sneak in." Then she started filming Casey with her phone, zooming in on her license plate and even her body. "You're dressed like a criminal's girlfriend. I'm reporting you." Casey was mortified. She tried to drive around, but Karen planted her body right in front of the car, screaming, "I will have you removed." Back to the present. As I stood beside the squad car, Karen was still barking orders even with cuffs on. "You're going to regret this. My husband is a powerful man." I could have laughed if I wasn't so angry. She really thought she was above the law. But just then a black Range Rover pulled up behind my cruiser. A short, stocky man in a navy blue suit jumped out and marched toward me. His gray hair was slicked back and his face was red with fury. "Are you the officer who arrested my wife?" "I'm not an officer," I said, flashing my badge. "I'm the chief of police. Your wife just harassed my daughter and tried to block her from entering her own home." He blinked and then the panic started to set in. "This is a misunderstanding," he stammered. "Karen didn't know she was your daughter." "So she did know she was a resident?" "Well, that's not what I meant." That's when the HOA's lawyer stepped forward, a young guy in khakis and a blazer. "Sir, with all due respect, your daughter's appearance may have caused confusion." Karen thought. "Let me stop you right there," I cut him off. "Are you seriously justifying profiling a teenage girl based on what she was wearing?" Silence. The neighborhood was watching. At least 4 neighbors had come outside by then. Some were filming the incident on their phones. One of them was Mr. Harold, a retired Marine who'd had his own share of run-ins with Karen. "About time someone cuffed that menace," he muttered. Another neighbor, an older woman named Judy, approached Casey and gave her a hug. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Karen's been out of control for months. We should have spoken up sooner. That made my heart ache. My daughter was just a child and she was already learning how ugly entitlement could be." Then came the twist. Just as I was preparing to put Karen in the back of the cruiser, my radio buzzed again. "Chief, you might want to hold off on transporting the suspect. Internal Affairs just called." Karen's husband submitted a complaint saying you used excessive force and arrested her out of personal bias. I froze. This woman had harassed a minor. She had blocked traffic. She had lied about being part of the HOA leadership when there was no official board. And now they were trying to flip the script on me? I looked over at Casey, still shaking, eyes wide with fear, and I realized something. This wasn't just about one woman anymore. It was about how many people had been bullied into silence. And I was going to expose every last secret this fake HOA had been hiding. Internal Affairs is reviewing your conduct, sir. That was the exact message coming through my squad radio. For a brief second, the air around me felt heavier. My fingers tightened on the walkie as I looked around, neighbors recording, Casey wiping her tears, and Karen smirking through her messy bun like she just scored a victory. She knew exactly what she was doing. And she wasn't afraid anymore. But what she didn't know was that I had receipts. I calmly acknowledged the radio and responded, "Copy that. I'll pause transport and remain on site." Then I turned to Karen. "You said you're the HOA vice president, right?" "Yes." "And as a resident representative, I was protecting community standards," she said proudly. "Perfect." I nodded. "Because that means I can lawfully request HOA meeting recordings, minutes, and your member credentials, right now." Her face twitched. 2 days earlier? Let's rewind for a moment. This whole thing didn't start with Casey at the gate. No, it started 2 days earlier when I found a warning notice slapped on my front door. Red ink. Big bold letters. Violation, excessive lawn decorations. Failure to comply will result in a $500 fine. Lawn decorations? I had one small American flag and a garden gnome holding a coffee mug. That's it. I crumpled the paper, half annoyed, half confused. There was no real HOA in our neighborhood. Just a few loud residents like Karen who took it upon themselves to enforce fake rules. We had a community group chat, but no one ever voted for Karen or gave her legal power. Later that night, I brought it up with some neighbors during our street barbecue. "Yeah," said Josh from 2 doors down, "Karen fined me $200 last week for trashy trash bins." I had no idea that was even a thing. "She fined me for my kids playing basketball in the driveway," said Mrs. Carroll, shaking her head. "Said it was a noise violation." That's when I knew something was wrong. These weren't just annoying notes. Karen was abusing power she didn't have. And worse, people were paying her. Back to the present. "Karen, since you've confirmed you're HOA vice president, I'll need access to your bylaws, resident vote records, and financial statements for the past 12 months, I said. "Right now." I don't have them on me," she stammered. "Then we'll go to your house and get them. You just declared yourself a public official." She started sweating. Wait. I didn't mean like that. I meant unofficially, like a concerned citizen." The flip-flop had begun. Meanwhile, her husband stepped forward again. "Chief Bryant, we're willing to drop this whole issue, if you let my wife go home. No charges, no drama." "That's not how the law works, Mr. Wagner," I said. "Especially when minors are involved. Your wife harassed my daughter, trespassed into a traffic lane, and impersonated a public official. I have 3 eyewitnesses and dashcam footage. You'd really ruin a woman's life over this?" "No," I replied. "She did that on her own." Casey breaks down. While I dealt with them, I noticed Casey had walked a few steps away from her car. She stood under the shade of a jacaranda tree, arms crossed, trying to hold herself together. I walked over to her. "You okay, baby girl?" "No," she said, her voice cracking. She kept zooming in on me with her phone. She said I looked like trouble. She asked if I was a runaway or gang member. "Daddy, I've never felt so small." My throat tightened. This wasn't just HOA nonsense. This was targeted harassment, plain and simple. And it wasn't going away unless we exposed it. "Sweetheart, I promise you something," I said, kneeling so we were eye to eye. Nobody messes with you and walks away free. Not in this house." Neighbors take a stand. Then came something I didn't expect. One by one, neighbors began stepping forward, not just to whisper their support but to speak up loudly. "Chief, she told my son his car looked stolen. She sent animal control to our backyard because she said our golden retriever looked suspicious. She even threatened to fine us for letting my mother-in-law visit without a guest tag." I stood up and faced them. "Do any of you have copies of her written notices? Emails? Text? Videos?" Hands went up everywhere. Phones came out. It was like opening a floodgate. The stories poured out, and most importantly, so did evidence. Karen's HOA was a total scam. She was issuing fake fines, manipulating frightened residents, and collecting hundreds, maybe thousands, of dollars in so-called compliance fees. Then the bomb dropped. While I was collecting testimony, another patrol unit pulled up. Officer Denise stepped out with a brown envelope. "Chief," she said, lowering her voice. "We ran a quick background check after the IA alert. You're going to want to see this." I took the envelope. Inside were printed screenshots of Karen's recent digital footprint. Facebook posts, group messages, emails. One post stood out, dated a week ago in a private neighborhood group. "I don't trust that new girl who drives the silver Toyota. Saw her at the gate blasting music like she owns the place. I think she's related to those people who keep lowering the value of our homes. We need to set an example early." My hands clenched into fists. It was racist. It was targeted. It was about my daughter. I looked at Karen, still cuffed, and said, "So, is this what you meant by community standards?" Karen breaks. "That was it." Karen's legs buckled. "I didn't mean it like that. I didn't know she was your daughter. I didn't know she lived here. So if she wasn't my daughter, it would have been okay?" Silence. She knew she was caught. Her voice got smaller. "I was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe." I turned away. "Get her in the cruiser," I ordered Officer Denise, "and call legal. We're opening a formal investigation into unlawful HOA fraud and racial profiling." Then came the backup plan. Karen's husband panicked. "Wait. If she talks under pressure, she might expose everything." He turned and ran toward the Range Rover, reached into the back seat, and pulled out a briefcase. The neighbors gasped. I stepped in. "Drop the case." I barked. "It's just papers. It's just—" I opened the case. Inside were receipts. Stacks of HOA payments, all in cash. Some even had names and fake violation codes written in Karen's handwriting. She wasn't just handing out fake fines, she was pocketing the money. We had her. Dead to rights. But just as Officer Denise began placing the evidence bag into the cruiser, a black SUV sped around the corner and screeched to a halt. A man in a city inspector jacket stepped out, flashing a badge. "I'm here to speak to the police chief. We have a big problem. Karen filed a city complaint against you 3 days ago. You're now under a civil misconduct probe." The man from the SUV slammed his door shut and walked toward me like he owned the place. His badge hung loose around his neck, and he carried a thick manila folder in one hand. "Chief Bryant," he called out, stopping just a few feet from me. "I'm Inspector Dale from the city's Oversight Department. We received a formal complaint last week claiming you've been abusing your badge for personal gain in this neighborhood." My jaw tightened. "Excuse me?" I asked. "The complaint includes claims of intimidation, favoritism, and using your police authority to settle domestic HOA disputes. It's signed by Karen Wagner." Every eye in the street turned toward Karen, who was now sitting inside my squad car, locked in the back seat. Her head slowly sank between her shoulders. "You're kidding me," I muttered. "So she started a complaint against me before she even harassed my daughter?" "Looks that way," Inspector Dale said, flipping open the folder. "She alleges you've been interfering with HOA operations and threatening her at community meetings." I couldn't help but laugh. A low, humorless laugh. "There are no official HOA operations, Inspector. Karen created her own fake system, has been issuing phony fines, and was just caught red-handed profiling minors and pocketing money from the residents." I pointed toward the briefcase full of evidence. The trap she set. What I didn't know, until that moment, was that Karen had planned everything. She had been laying the groundwork for weeks, maybe months. Filing fake complaints, manipulating residents into thinking I was the one abusing authority, and even planting witnesses who would speak on her behalf. It was a trap. She'd known I would eventually snap, especially if she ever targeted my family. And now that I'd cuffed her in front of neighbors, she was going to spin the story. It was her word against mine, unless we found a way to expose her in public fast. A neighbor speaks up. Suddenly, from the crowd of onlookers, a voice rang out. "Wait, I have a video." Everyone turned. It was Malik, a local college student who lived down the block. He held up his phone and hit play. On screen, Karen at the gate leaning into Casey's car. I said, "Get out. You don't look like you belong here." "Casey, I live here, ma'am." "Karen, you expect me to believe that with those nails and that music?" "I'm calling security." The video was clear as day. And then, her mistake. Karen turned to her phone camera and said, "If the police chief wants to start a war, he's going to get one." The crowd gasped. Inspector Dale's face dropped. "That changes things," he said slowly. You think? I muttered. The investigation begins. Within 30 minutes, we had Karen's phone confiscated under warrant, thanks to the emerging criminal case. Our tech unit quickly uncovered a treasure trove of texts, emails, and group messages with shocking details. Karen bragging about removing unwanted types from the neighborhood. Threats to scare the new families until they leave. A spreadsheet of fake fines in which residents were more willing to pay quietly. It was everything we needed. I walked back to the crowd and held up a printout from the messages. This is what Karen thinks of you. Of all of us. Neighbors started shaking their heads, angry and ashamed. Mr. Harold, the retired Marine, clenched his fists. She nearly made me move out, he said. My wife couldn't take the harassment. Judy, who had always defended Karen before, whispered. She told me she was doing it for the community. Karen cracks. By late afternoon, the cruiser was rolling toward city jail. Karen was silent, her face pale, hair frazzled, eyes darting between the officers escorting her. She finally spoke. Tell my husband to get me out. I was only doing what he told me to do. I raised an eyebrow. Come again? It wasn't just me, she said quickly. He's the one who started the fake HOA. I was just the face. He's the one who said profiling kept the wrong elements away. Now that was something. I called in a favor to the city attorney's office and asked for a deeper background check on Mr. Wagner. Within an hour they had what we needed. Turns out, Mr. Wagner had been using Karen's fake HOA racket to launder small cash payments into one of his side businesses, a landscaping firm that billed enforcement fees for Karen's fake citations. It wasn't just harassment now. It was fraud. Wire fraud. Tax evasion. The retaliation. That evening, just when I thought it was finally over, my house security alarm went off. Someone had broken into my backyard shed. I rushed home to find the lock cut, tools scattered, and graffiti on the back fence. Resign or pay. They weren't just mad. They were desperate. Before I could call it in, I noticed something taped to the side of the house. A manila envelope. Inside. Photos of my daughter, taken without her knowing, at school, the grocery store, and even the park. A note read, "She's next if you don't back off." I stared at the envelope, my hands trembling, not from fear but fury. Photos of my daughter, my little girl, taken from a distance. Watching her. Following her. One showed her walking home with groceries. Another? Standing with a friend after school. And the final one? She was at our community park, smiling, swinging on a swing, completely unaware that a predator's eyes were on her. The message taped to the back said, "She's next. Back off." My stomach twisted into knots. I gripped the note so hard the edges ripped. They were threatening her now. This wasn't HOA drama anymore. This was organized intimidation. And now it was personal. I activated my unit. I didn't even call 911. I called my unit directly. The Special Investigations Division. Code red. I'm invoking officer safety protocol. My family's been threatened. Within minutes, 3 unmarked cruisers rolled onto my property. 2 officers secured the perimeter. Another took the envelope and photos into evidence. I turned to Officer Denise. No more playing nice. I want eyes on Wagner, his businesses, his bank accounts, and anyone linked to his landscaping front. And I want a full background run on every board member Karen ever claimed to work with. Yes, sir, she replied, already dialing. This wasn't just about Karen anymore. This was a network. And they'd crossed a line. Casey's fear turns to fire. I sat down with Casey that night. She was curled up on the couch in her pajamas, hugging a blanket. The television played quietly in the background, but she wasn't watching. They took pictures of me, Dad, she whispered. What if they hurt someone else? I looked at her, proud and heartbroken all at once. That's not going to happen. You hear me? She nodded slowly. I want to help, she said. I want people to know what Karen did to me. What she's doing to others. That was the moment I realized, my daughter wasn't just afraid anymore. She was ready to fight. The deep dig begins. The next day, my team unearthed enough evidence to make my head spin. Turns out, Karen's husband wasn't just some background puppet. He was a former HOA executive from a different community, one that dissolved its board after residents discovered $80,000 in missing funds. Guess who was treasurer? Him. Guess where the money disappeared? Into the same landscaping firm that was now partnered with Karen's fake HOA. And that wasn't all. They had set up a shell corporation, Community Standards Consulting, and were billing residents for fake services, fence inspections, lawn assessments, even driveway water runoff studies. It was all a scam. A professional one. and they'd been running it for years. Then the press got involved. By noon, word had spread. A local reporter from Channel 5 News showed up at our precinct, microphone in hand. "Chief Bryant, are you investigating HOA fraud in your own neighborhood?" "We are," I said, sticking to the facts. "And it's much bigger than a neighborhood dispute." "Is it true your daughter was the victim of racial profiling at the gate?" "Yes." "Do you believe this is an isolated incident?" "No." That was all I needed to say. The clip went viral by that evening. #HOA scandal. #KarenGate. #Justice for Casey. Those hashtags were trending within hours. Then came the confession. Karen folded in jail. After 24 hours, the pressure broke her. She gave a full recorded statement to the district attorney. She exposed everything: how her husband masterminded the scheme, how they collected over $150,000 in compliance fees in under 2 years, and how they used HOA-sounding language to keep residents afraid and quiet. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," she sobbed. "I just thought, if we acted like we were in charge, people would fall in line." They did. Until they didn't. But Wagner wasn't going down alone. That night, Wagner vanished. He didn't report to work. Didn't return home. Didn't show up to court. His phone was off, car missing, house locked. We issued a bolo. Hours later, we found his car parked in the next county, abandoned behind a storage unit. Inside, $8,000 in cash, a burner phone, and a list of addresses, including mine. There was a star next to my house. And a second star? It was Casey's school. The final blow. We traced Wagner to an old cabin his company owned on the edge of town. He was trying to skip the country. Our officers raided the place just before dawn. He was found hiding in the basement, passport in hand, suitcase full of money, and a laptop wiped clean. But not clean enough. Our cyber unit recovered emails showing he had been tracking residents, logging their movements, habits, and vulnerabilities. And Casey? He had a whole folder titled, "Chief's Girl." That's when I knew. He wasn't just a con man. He was a stalker. And he was going to pay. Just when I thought it was finally over, the judge set Karen's bail at $15,000 and released her under house arrest. That night, my home security system buzzed again. There was someone at my gate. And when I checked the camera feed, Karen was standing there, smiling. There she was, standing at my front gate at 9:47 p.m., with an ankle monitor blinking beneath her leggings, and a smirk on her face. "She's back," I whispered. I stared at the live feed on my security monitor in disbelief. My phone buzzed before I could even react. Officer Denise was already calling. "Chief, Karen just pinged on the GPS fence line. She's not supposed to be within 300 feet of your property. She's right at the gate. Do you want us to intervene?" I looked again. Karen was just standing there, not saying a word, just staring at the camera with this unsettling calmness, like she wasn't afraid anymore, like she knew something we didn't. "No," I finally said. "Let me talk to her first." The confrontation. I stepped outside, hands firm, my badge shining under the porch light. Karen didn't flinch as I approached. The monitor on her ankle beeped softly with every second she lingered beyond her restricted zone. "You're violating a court order, Karen," I said evenly. "Turn around before this gets worse." "I just wanted to talk," she replied, her voice eerily calm. "You're the police chief. Don't you believe in due process? You forfeited that when you harassed my daughter and ran a criminal operation out of your driveway." She tilted her head. "You think you've won, don't you? You're the one standing at my gate in cuffs and a tracking bracelet." I'd say the scoreboard speaks for itself. Karen laughed softly, but there was no joy in it. "You really don't get it," she said. "This wasn't just about some fake fines. We were protecting this neighborhood." "From what?" "From people like you." She turned and walked back to the sidewalk, hands behind her back as Officer Denise's car rolled up and rearrested her. This time for violating a protective order and stalking. The DA's office gets involved. The next morning, I met with Assistant District Attorney Rachel Monroe. She'd been quietly watching the case unfold and decided it was time to go public. "We're filing federal charges," she said. "HOA fraud, racketeering, organized harassment, and conspiracy to commit identity theft." "Identity theft?" I asked, surprised. "Yes. Wagner and Karen were collecting resident information, using it to create shadow profiles, open fake accounts, and even reroute utility payments through their company to inflate service charges." I nearly choked on my coffee. This was a full-blown criminal enterprise dressed in yoga pants and gardening gloves. Casey gets her voice back. 2 days later, Casey stood on stage at her school assembly. She had been invited by her principal to share her story, how she was profiled at the gate, how she was followed, and how she found strength through the storm. "I used to think I didn't belong," she said into the mic, "that no matter how hard I tried, I'd always have to prove myself. But now I know that the problem wasn't me. It was people like her." The room erupted in applause. Some parents cried. Even the teachers stood. Casey had reclaimed her voice. And the whole town heard her. Then came the bombshell news report. That night, Channel 5 ran a special investigative segment titled, "Neighborhood of Fear, the Fake HOA That Ruled by Intimidation." It showed interviews with over 20 residents who were scammed, threatened, and silenced by Karen and her husband. One neighbor revealed he paid over $5,000 in bogus HOA assessments after Karen threatened to report him to CPS over made-up violations. Another said she lost a job opportunity after Karen sent a fake noise complaint to her employer. Wagner and Karen had turned a peaceful community into a private kingdom, until they messed with the wrong family. The plea offer. A week later, Karen's defense lawyer reached out. "She's willing to take a deal," the lawyer said. 5 years with parole eligibility in 2. She'll testify against her husband, provide financial records, and forfeit all her assets. I didn't respond immediately. But that night, as I watched Casey sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks, I knew what to do. "Take the deal," I told the DA. "Let's bury the real mastermind." Wagner's web unravels. Thanks to Karen's testimony, we traced Wagner's money laundering operation all the way to 3 other neighborhoods. Each had a different HOA figurehead. Each had the same shell company. The fraud totaled over $470,000 in stolen funds. When federal agents showed up at his courthouse appearance, Wagner tried to run. He didn't make it 30 feet before he was tackled. Now he faced 12 felony charges across multiple states, including stalking, fraud, and racketeering. He wasn't getting out. Not ever. The final twist. Just as our community began to heal, I received a visit. From a woman. Late 40s. Tired eyes. Shaky hands. "I'm Karen's sister," she said. "We haven't spoken in years. But I needed to tell you something." She pulled out a USB drive. Karen kept a backup journal. She didn't trust Wagner. "And there's something else you need to see. He wasn't just watching your daughter, he was planning to frame you." Inside the drive? Video clips from inside Karen and Wagner's house. Secret recordings he took without her knowing. One showed him editing security footage. Another showed him practicing my voice using AI deepfake software. His plan wasn't just to silence me. He was going to impersonate me. And destroy my reputation from the inside. The FBI steps in. I immediately contacted Special Agent Rhonda Hayes at the FBI Cybercrime Division. Within 24 hours, a federal digital forensic team swept Karen and Wagner's home networks. What they found was terrifying. A secret server in their attic was wired into a separate ISP account, used only to develop and store manipulated files under an alias, BlueJustice_22. Hundreds of audio files. Dozens of video snippets. All designed to destroy reputations. Mine was just the biggest target. Other folders had names of city officials, school board members, and even pastors from local churches. Wagner had been building insurance, blackmail files for anyone who threatened his fake HOA empire. "He's a cyber criminal with a grudge," Agent Hayes said. "And you were the kingpin target." Community court day. The courtroom overflowed with neighbors, reporters, and victims of the scheme. Karen sat quietly at the defense table, dressed in gray, looking 10 years older than she had a month ago. Her plea was entered. Guilty. 5 years. She didn't speak. Didn't cry. Didn't resist. But when Wagner was let in, shackled and defiant, he looked straight at me. "This isn't over," he mouthed. I stepped forward, ready to give my final victim impact statement. My words to the court. "Your Honor, my name is Chief Robert Bryant. I've spent 27 years serving this city. I've taken down gangs, stopped home invasions, and helped grieving mothers identify their sons. But nothing prepared me for what happened in my own neighborhood. This wasn't just a scam. This was psychological warfare disguised as HOA rules. It stripped people of their peace, made them afraid to live in their own homes, and targeted my daughter in ways no child should endure. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm focused. Focused on making sure no one, no matter how entitled, no matter how manipulative, ever weaponizes community to destroy it. Today we take our neighborhood back." The sentence. Wagner received 38 years without parole. He cried for the first time, Not for the people he hurt, but for the freedom he lost. The courtroom erupted in applause. Not because someone went to prison, but because justice, real justice, had finally come to our gates. A new chapter begins. 3 months later, our neighborhood held its first official HOA election, with real rules, real transparency, and real community voices. I didn't run. But Casey? She did. I want to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else, she said at the town hall. She won. Unanimously. Today our gates are open, but with boundaries that protect, not divide. There are no fake fines, no secret cameras, and no more Karens. The final scene. One afternoon as I walked home from work, I saw Casey standing at the same gate where it all began, smiling, helping a new family with directions. I stopped for a second and watched, and I realized, sometimes the gate that once trapped you becomes the one you protect for others.